Hello, everyone. My name is Hazy Gray, and welcome to the pilot episode, I guess, of the GrayScale Podcast. This is just going to be general, casual podcast, and our first ever guest is fellow YouTuber Insetik47. Welcome
Hello.
on the show.
Yeah, Insetik.
That is how you pronounce that, right? I didn't just bastardize that.
Right.
Okay. So,
yeah, you're all good, Insetik.
Yeah, good. So first of all, welcome on the show. Obviously, you're the very first guest, and I guess this will be good to transition into the first question, that being, who are you, and what kind of content do you post here on YouTube generally?
So, I know about extreme sports games. In fact, I've played, I think, probably the most extreme sports games out of anyone you'll find on YouTube. If you want to see one, skateboarding, snowboarding, rollerblading, BMX, scootering, not even just the big series, but all the other ones that, tried to ride the wave in the early mid-2000s, you can go to my channel on YouTube and I'll probably have a playthrough of them. And it's not just me as well. I always have my, friends on them with me. They're post-commentary, kind of. If you remember how Let's Plays were like a decade ago, I never stopped doing that. And so, humor, funny asides, just fun commentary all around.
Yeah, and I can imagine, I always wanted to, do a channel like that. Just, get a bunch of buddies together and just, just talk while we're playing some of our favorite games. I always tried getting something like that to work when I was younger, but me and my friends, we live in, it's a relatively small town, but, they're all busy with their stuff, and I'm all busy with my stuff, so that fell through. But I would love to do that whenever I get older. Just dick around and just play games and just chat and stuff like that. That is the dream, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, because it actually does sort of work out because, again, I don't talk while playing. We don't talk while playing. I play and record and then put the videos together, which let's say I messed up on something for 15 minutes straight. I could just cut that out, keep the viewers' time in mind. But then two, we can just record then when a time works. I'm sure when I record, the other guys wouldn't be around, but I'm able to put these together so that it's hey, at this day, 8 p.m., are we all around to just, be there for 30 minutes and goof around and such?
Yeah, and I guess this transitions into the next question. When it comes to playing games for your YouTube channel, how I personally found you was mainly through the SSX community Discord, but it was also because I actually remember one day I found your Let's Play of SSX Tricky. And oddly enough, the first ever fucking episode I watched was the April Fool's Alaska episode, I think. Yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah. For context, there's an Alaska level in an SSX Tricky. There's also an Alaska level in another winter extreme sports game, Johnny Mosley Mad Tricks, which I'm sure we could talk about later, which is kind of infamous to me and my group for being terribly broken. And so for April Fools, I uploaded that as the Alaska video instead.
Yeah. I actually remember watching that video. Initially I was confused, but then I was like, I see what he did there. And I guess, this transitions into the question, what got you into SSX? Where was, your jumping in point?
Right. So, I've played the SSX series since basically the beginning. The PlayStation 2, the first SSX game was a launch title for the PlayStation 2 all the way back in the year 2000. And I was a kid at the time, and I got a PS2 that Christmas, and I got 2 games with it when I got it. The first one was SSX. The second one was actually a PS1 game, Looney Tunes Racing. So, two timelines where in one, this is the first one where I've played like all the SSX games, and yeah, I'm an admin of the SSX community Discord and can totally talk about that. And in the other one, I'm like a tech master for Looney Tunes Racing. Probably doing like a no A button challenge for that or something. But yeah, so I've played them since the start. SSX, then Tricky, and 3. Around like 2004, 2005, I was kind of getting into, more mature first-person shooters kind of thing. So, like on tour, I played a bit at the time, but not a whole lot. But then, when SSX was rebooted in 2012, I definitely played that one as well and really enjoyed it. So, I'd played all the games, well, minus Blur. And then for my channel, I'd always been wanting to do the games that weren't part of these main series. So I took a while to get around to it, but eventually I was doing, main series popular extreme sports games back to back. And 2021 was when I was like, all right, it's time for SSX. And so I created, those series videos for all of the games, all of the main console games. I didn't touch the handhelds, but yeah, I'd finally done them for my channel then. And so also, like I mentioned, I'm an admin of the SSX community Discord, and I have been since that was pretty much started by, Rithek in 2015, 2016. And, we're still doing that to this day. And that's where you can find a lot of the, community.
I remember my jumping off point when it came for SSX. It was actually my dad who got me into SSX. I must have been 4 years old. This would be like 2008. And I remember he booted up the PS2 one day, and I just saw him playing this game where, see, like, I was a dumb kid, so I didn't know what the hell snowboarding was. So I just saw these dudes riding around on, like, flat rectangles, and I was like, ooh, what's that? And my dad just gave me the controller, and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even comprehend what was going on. All I saw was that I was making my dude do, like, fucking Beyblade spins in the air. I was having too much fun. And Tricky was like, now, this is gonna be a bit crazy to hear. I didn't touch any of her SSX game until 2020. Tricky was my one game in the franchise. It wasn't until, like, 2020 that I kind of, like, got my act together and was like, we've been stuck playing this one game for 12 years. Play the other ones, please. And that's when I first played SSX Free. I fucking fell in love with that game instantly. And I've beaten that game both on PS2 and on Xbox. The Xbox One re-release of that game. I don't like the controls on it as much, but it looks so good, and I love that game to bits. I then played the original SSX, love that too. On Tour, I've got a love-hate relationship with On Tour. I think it's fun, but God, playing through that game is a grind, because you just end up playing the same levels over and over again. But I love the soundtrack of that game. That game soundtrack might be my favorite soundtrack out of all the games. Like, oh God, I swear, my jaw dropped whenever I saw fucking Avenged Sevenfold in the playlist. I thought I was high when I read that. I was like, what? Avenged Sevenfold and SSX, what does the world come to?
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. I mean, Tricky has a ton of, lasting value and replayability value. And not only is it a really great game, but yeah, I mean, I could see why a kid, would see one of these games and just get kind of hooked. All the flair, I don't just want to say, ooh, flashing lights and sounds, but I mean, it definitely had that, style, that really arcadey style that, could hook someone. And then, it always gave you, big opportunities. And even if you weren't the best, you could do cool things with it and start finding shortcuts and start finding, giant big air trick opportunities, and yeah, definitely Tricky and 3, are probably definitely are some of the best extreme sports games.
And like when it comes to replayability and Tricky, like me and my brother would play that game religiously, like to a point where it almost concerned my own father. And I remember like even to this day, I remember my older brother dug the old PS2 out of the closet, because like I own SSX Tricky and SSX Free, like the physical discs, but I mainly emulate the games just because they look better. And my brother dug the PS2 out of the like depths of our like shed, and he booted up SSX Tricky. And I remember he played Mercury City. I don't know why, because like that's his least favorite track in that game. He played Mercury City, and I must have been downstairs, and I just hear him yell from like the top of the stairs, like Matthew, get up the stairs. And I just run up, and he's like, when the hell has this UFO been here? And he found the UFO shortcut for the first time. And this dude is 4 years older than me. Like, I'm 18, he's 22. This is a grown-ass man playing his PS2, and he's freaking out because he's just seen a UFO for the first time. He's been playing that game since before I was born. And here he is nerding out over a UFO that he swear to God, he's never seen it before. And he's just found it for the first time. Because Mercury City, it was a track he always hated, so he never played it. So then the one time he actually goes through and he plays it, he finds a UFO.
Yeah, it's amazing. You'd think, well, first, the PS2s, you'd just, like, feel them, and you'd think they'd just fall apart, like, that they wouldn't be sturdy, but yeah, they're built like a brick. I also dug mine out after a decade plus of not having used it, and it just turned on, and it just worked, and, yeah, but, no, definitely, and then, not only just, finding stuff out in the levels, but then, you know, playing through them, and if you want to get, like, competitive, you know, try and set the best racing time or tricking score with your friends, that ends up being something crazy as well. There was, you know, this was in, like, college, so it's not even like all of these friends of mine, you know, were from, like, the forums or something where everyone loved SSX, but we just decided on, like, SSX Tricky being a game we'd try to compete against each other with, and the high score on, like, Garibaldi, and starting out just, you know, doing the standard kind of runs, but then watching the world records and trying to do all of those strategies where people, you know, turn around, go back up the mountain, do extra things that way.
Yeah.
And I am a card-carrying member of the 2 million club on Garibaldi. Low 2 million, you know, like 2.2, I think. But yeah, at the end of that weeks-long fest or so, one of us had a 2.3 and they won. But yeah, it could just... It's the type of game that can just become like a party game or bring people together.
Oh my god, and like, speaking of that, I remember when I was younger, I saw, like, I think everyone who's ever played SSX at one point has seen the video. It's like, it's one of the first videos I think you see when you look up SSX Tricky. It's like, it's the one of that one guy doing the the tool-assisted speed run of Garibaldi, and he's playing his Mac. It's like one of the first videos you see when you look up, like, SSX Tricky. It's like, it's the one you just described, the one where he goes down the mountain, he goes back up the mountain, he's literally hitting. The one thing I've never understood about that video is when he hits, like, the walk in the dog, and then as he wipes out, he, like, resets himself in a way that allows him to still, like, bank the trick. Like, I never got that. I thought as a kid that was like fucking witchcraft.
Yeah, all of that high score stuff, you know, playing something so much you would get it down to exact frames and such. So again, I guess I'll start this with not start, but that again, yeah. I'm really screwing this sentence up. I hope you cut things out before uploading. But
it's fine.
So yeah, again, I started with the series pretty much when it started, and that was also when I, was getting old enough to be able to get computer access, being like 7, 8, 2000, 2001. And so of course I looked up, stuff for this series, and so the Mercury City forums was my first real, internet community, online internet community. And so, yeah, I was there as well from the start. I was probably one of the youngest people on that forum, and I can still remember, some of the cringe posted. If anyone really wants to check it out and such, because I think the forums are still up, you could search for me. My username back then was Edged Border.
Oh my
and no, that
God.
was not intentional.
Yeah, I was
just thought it was a cool name, but anyway. So so I was there kind of from the start, seeing people, upload these world records, and sure, back then it was mostly pictures because you didn't even have YouTube. Back in the early 2000s, but yeah, I mean, I remember these videos coming out of someone would get like 3 million on Garibaldi, and then 3.2 million, 3.4, and
it just kept going up.
Yeah, and just seeing more of those things develop again, people playing the same, figuring these things out over and over and over. I mean, you look up non-TAS, world records for SSX Tricky and such, and it's had such a scene that, again, people have figured out the absolute best lines and best things, like, oh, you could squeeze 2 sad sacks and a hand in hand here on this jump and land on like the first frame of the, landable animation for hand in hand, and that's the best kind of thing for that. So, and I actually did get, I never, for tricking, I never really was competing for the very top. Mainly because, again, just so much that, so much precision, you have to put in so many hours. But in SSX3, I was competing for some of like the racing records for a bit back then. And then when I kind of got back into SSX in like 2015, 2016, that was sort of when, like, again, the first people like Rithik and then later Daggy Boy were streaming it on Twitch and doing, some of like the all peak runs and getting interest back in for some of those categories. And I was doing that as well. I'm not competing for any records nowadays, but yeah, I was there sometimes, let's say.
That is fair enough. And like, I can imagine how wild it must have been back then to just see like how high the records could go, because you were saying earlier, like, you and your college friends, like, you'd be getting out like 2.2 million, 2.3 million, and then you go online and then you see a dude who somehow got like 3.5. That must have been like wild to see, because like your first thought must have been, how the hell do I do that?
Yeah, it's an art form. You can look these up, and it's an art form, both, again, in terms of, what people can do, like the actual records, but then especially nowadays, what people have done, TAS wise.
Yeah. And moving on to the next question. Now this is interesting because I've asked around, and there's a lot of varied takes. What would you say your favorite SSX game out of the entire franchise is? But like, considering what we've just talked about, I feel like there's only 2 real contenders here.
Yeah, most people's favorite games out of the series, because I mean, they are the best, are either SSX Tricky or SSX3. My favorite is actually SSX3. Just the mechanics, the way everything flows into each other is just so incredible in that game, and it feels like there is so much replayability value, and even if you're not trying to do like the crazy stuff, Well, I'm about to list a bunch of crazy stuff, but I mean just monster tricks and again the presentation and everything within that. Yeah, 3 has always been my personal favorite and the one that I've put the most time into.
Personally for me, it's really hard to pinpoint, cause like, I think if I took nostalgia into account, Tricky wins all the time. But if I'm talking like out of pure enjoyability, who the fuck am I kidding? It's still Tricky. But I can definitely see why people love Free. Like Free from like a gameplay standpoint, it's like Free just plays so good that there's like nowhere really. Now I'm fucking butchering the sentence.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's exactly. I think, I do, when I play a game, I do end up, even if I don't make it competitive, I do notice a lot of things about like mechanics and how things play into each other and such. And yeah, 3 is just so tightly made and designed. I mean, Tricky is great. Tricky is, loud and fun and honestly has such personality that no other game in, its category can really match it. And I don't know if any game ever will. I'm talking, like snowboarding again, action sports, extreme sports. And like we've both mentioned, it's just such pick up and play kind of, you can just be like, hey, I want to play Tricky and pick it up and like draw a crowd. SSX3 is more, you have to put a bit more time into it. If I started playing SSX3 and asked, my friends to try and compete versus me, it wouldn't have turned into that much of a competition. I could tell that, but again, yeah, just with the mechanics and all, that will really gelled with me.
It's like Free is definitely a game that like demands you learn its mechanics, whereas Tricky is a more casual experience. Like I still remember, like I kind of felt like, well, I guess I can't really say I breezed through the game, but like I got through most of Free relatively, like playing the same exact way I would have played with like SSX Tricky. And then I got to Kicked Out, and I wanted to cry. I don't...
Kicked Out is so much harder than anything else in 3.
Oh my god. Whoever designed that was a fucking madman. Was that... What's the name of the main director? It was like Steven something. It's like...
Gosh, yeah.
Wait, hold on. I have his name here. It's like... It's Steven Rechtschaeffer? Rechtschaeffer. I think that's how you call it.
Right.
We'll just call him Steven. We'll just call him Steven, just for our sanity's sake. God, like,
Steve boy.
Would Steven have even been on the team at that point?
I don't know. I haven't really looked into the, ins and outs and specifics of development of any of them.
Well, like, whoever was in charge of designing that track, they clearly lost their fucking minds midway through, because that track is just so... It's like, it's hard, and it's like brutally hard, but like it's actually designed well. It's like it gives you more than enough opportunities to actually like get points. So I can't really say that it's hard because of like the level design. The level design fits the track's difficulty perfectly.
Yeah, what did I say in my video for Kicked Out? It was like, by this point, or specifically for this, you need to know, I remember now, you need to be able to do 2 of 3 things. This is one of those. Here are 3 things. You need to have done 2 of them to pass Kicked Out. You need to be able to keep a combo to like maximum point giving and beyond. You need to know how to do monster tricks. Or you need to know how to get all of the 10x multipliers. You need to do 2 of those 3 to get like platinum on Kicked Out.
Yeah, I actually still remember, I think Kicked Out was the first track I actually got a platinum on, and I remember I was so proud of it, I like posted on it to Reddit or some dumb shit like that. I was so proud of myself too, because it was like, I must have spent a whole afternoon. Like, I could probably beat, like, a world circuit mode of, like, SSX Tricky, like, in an afternoon. Kicked Out also takes me an afternoon, because that track is so fucking demanding. But, like,
yeah, but
it's fun.
going back to and going back to something you mentioned in talking about your little story, that's also what makes SSX3 really great, though. That, sure, it has a lot of detailed mechanics where you can, figure them out and put those together, and with, chaining a combo throughout, or monster tricks, or then getting into some of the things like, again, hitting buttons to cancel out like landing animations and crap. Like, with that, you can really soar past, but it is still a game where you can mostly, just play it normally and do well, do fine, be able to get through it, have success. There are some games where you need to kind of become masters of them and figure out exactly what the game wants you to do to be able to get through those. I'm looking at the Amped series of snowboarding games. Have their, fan base, but definitely not as popular as SSX3, because they kind of do demand that you really master them to be able to even really get through them. And the SSX series has, mostly never really come to that point. I think that's also why 3 kind of resonates with me, because there is just that sort of thing of like, kind of like becoming Neo in the Matrix, sort of like, I get down all of these extra things and I can piece them together and again just soar above the point requirements or what you could do before. I could get really, really high scores in SSX3 or find the best racing lines and do those, I guess, a lot more than I could in Tricky.
SSX3 is just a game that's just infinitely replayable, like, as you said. Now, moving on to the complete opposite end, what do you think's the worst SSX game? Because, like, I've watched you play Blur, and honestly, Blur doesn't seem nearly half as bad. Oh, wow,
you have to play Blur to understand.
Is it
why
really
it's
as
the
bad?
Motion controls.
Oh god, see, that's the problem with Blur. It's like, it looks fun, but then it's like, oh god, it's one of those games that would just benefit from being able to play it with a controller. If you could do that, it'd be infinitely better. Okay, I'm kind of moving off track. Like, this is still the dual boards, so bear with me. I fucking love the Sonic Free Rider games, like the ones on the hoverboard. I love Sonic Rider Zero Gravity. I recently got around to playing the original. Haven't played enough to really know how I feel about it, but I've heard so much, like, nightmare fuel about Sonic Free Riders. But the one thing I always hear about that game is, if you could play it with a controller, it would be great. And, like, would you argue that could potentially be the case for Blur?
I think if all the motion controls and such were taken out and it was perfectly playable on a controller, it would still be mostly either recycled content or even more soulless content, because all the tracks in Blur are from either SSX3 or on tour. All of the characters, hell, the whole aesthetic has this weird, like, Sims-like look. Like, straight up, I said this in my video, you guys go check. The character models look like they're from The Sims. But then there's no, like, interaction between any of them. It feels like Meatloaf. It feels like they took all the, things from previous games and just kind of sewed them together to create another SSX game. This one with motion controls. But again, even without that, I still think if you've played any of the others, Blur offers nothing new.
It's like, yeah, and that's the weird thing. Like, around the time Blur came out, EA had this weird a thing for recycling like the older games. Like, I mean, I only found out recently that SSX on Tour on PSP is literally just the third game. It's just SSX Freeze map.
That's its own weird thing. Yeah, where SSX on Tour is really SSX 3 mostly, but you can ski if you want.
Yeah. That'd actually be a cool concept if they were ever able to make like a new SSX game. Like, you get to choose like the aesthetic. Like, imagine going through like Garibaldi or Tokyo Megaplex, but the game looks like it belongs in On Tour, or you could swap it to look like Free, or swap it to look like Tricky, or hell, even the OG. Like, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Though it would require them to make 4 versions of the same track. That would be complete hell.
Yeah.
Oh god.
And I mean, like, they'd have different physics systems and such as well.
And that is the unique thing. Like, I've always wondered, what would SSX Tricky play like if it had Freeze like trick system and control system? That game would be out of control.
Yeah, that's...
Could you? Oh my god, I'm just imagining Tokyo Megaplex and all those rails with SSX Freeze Uber system. Sweet Jesus.
Or like, I don't know, you hit the fan to fly up in the air and... Oh my god, my hands are doing the thing, you know, I'm doing an executioner, frame canceling, Stone Age, frame canceling to land.
Oh my god.
Right at the end.
And I'm just
right now.
You literally get super Uber in a single bound. That's incredible. Oh my god. Okay. That would be absolutely incredible. Okay, now, this is a very interesting question, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, because I'm going to give my thoughts on it in a minute. Do you got any, quote-unquote takes about the SSX series that you know for a fact that, a lot of people would definitely not agree with in any way? Like, basically hot takes.
Honestly, I think my hottest takes are still pretty lukewarm.
That's fair enough. I
think maybe SSX Tricky's version of Mesa Blanca is a dark horse. That it's actually better than many people say, and pretty fun. Though I will then agree that SSX Original's version of Mesa Blanca is not very good.
Yeah, I was about to say, I hate OG's Mesa Blanca. I think it's terribly designed. Yeah. I love Tricky's version so much more.
That's the most improved. That got the best glow up.
Yeah.
And then I'd say as well, if you played like SSX 2012 back when it like came out and thought, oh, this is a disappointment. This is not what SSX should be. This is not what I want it to be. I'd say go back and play it now with the hindsight that that probably is the last SSX game, or at least has been the last one we've gotten for a decade. You know, I think in hindsight, I really appreciate that it's there and that you know it's still a great amount of fun, even if it's not SSX 4 or SSX 5, even if it's not all that we'd have wanted, I really appreciate that it's there and some of what it's done.
I'm gritting my teeth now that you've said that, because I'm about to say something, and I know you're about to hate me for saying it. Like, after what you've just said, I don't know if I want to say it now.
You don't like 2012?
I don't. I've tried playing it so many times, and I think this goes back to when I first got the game in 2012. Because the only SSX game I'd played, the only 2 SSX games I'd played prior to 2020 was SSX Tricky and SSX. Those were the only 2. I remember I got SSX for my birthday, the year it came out, and I beat that game in a weekend. And I don't think I picked up that game once after I beat it. I just felt no need to go back to it. Like, I don't know what happened, but my child brain, after it beat SSX 2012, it just forgot that game existed. Like, I put that game down, and I went back to playing Tricky for another 8 years. That is how child me felt about that game. And I went back and I got the game again on Xbox Series X, and I tried playing through it again, and I just don't enjoy it. It, like, okay, how do I describe it? It's like the gameplay is good. Like, well, I mean, it's kind of hard to mess up SSX's core gameplay. They've had 2 decades to get the gameplay sorted.
Yeah.
Or I guess 1 decade by the time that the reboot came out. It just didn't feel right. Like, something felt off when I was playing. It's like, okay, it's weird to describe. Like, have you ever played a Source game, but like, have you ever played a Source game and you're like playing on one of the maps, but it's completely empty, like no one's there, and like as you're walking around, something just feels wrong. Like something just does not feel right. Like that's how I felt when I played SSX 2012. Something just always felt off to me. And I think it was the tone. It's just the tone just felt wrong. It's like it looks realistic, but it plays like SSX free on crack, but it tries to have the personality of Tricky all in one, and it just I guess that's also the course design. It's like I think SSX 2012 would have benefited from more wacky over-the-top courses to fit the gameplay, cuz like seeing characters doing like a million front flips in like a realistic looking version of Mount Kilimanjaro in a cave while I'm wearing a light helmet, not being able to see where I'm going, it just, the game kind of feels like it's doing a lot, but like, it's like, again, it doesn't feel right. It's like, I can sit down and play it. It's not impossible for me to play, but it doesn't feel right. Where like if I were to play the original SSX, or Tricky, or Free, or On Tour, I can sit down, I can melt into my chair, and I have no problems. I sit down and I play 2012, and I'm just thinking to myself, something is not right here. Something is wrong, but I can't pinpoint the exact thing.
Yeah, no, I definitely agreed. Again, I totally don't have like a hot enough opinion to start debates, and I totally see what you mean. Like yeah, the 2012 SSX does have oh god, yeah, does have like either a lot of things in its way, or thinks that has updated the kind of gameplay to, you know, have more like level hazards or such. I mean, that's the entire Deadly Descents part of it, which I still think Deadly Descents is a cool subtitle, but and they should have stuck with that. But it's more based around that, and just compared to cutting loose with any of the previous SSXs. I mean, did you ever play the Mount Eddie DLC, which was pretty much the one time in 2012 where they did just build a track that's wild and beyond reality and just has huge ramps and crazy rails and no chances for you to just die?
See, that's the thing I was going to bring up. I never bought the DLC when I was a kid, because by the time I dropped the game, it had just come out. It didn't have DLC yet, or at least I don't think they released the DLC with the game. And when I went to play the game on Xbox Series X, I beat the game, and I considered getting the Mount Eddie DLC, but I don't know if you know this, but SSX 2012, at least on my Series X, it does not function correctly. This game is, okay, so like, I'm assuming you know that backwards compatible games, it emulates the game on the current software. It doesn't play exactly as it would on, like, the original console was made for. It's like, it's upscaled to look better on Series X, right?
Yeah.
Something went wrong when they were porting this game to Xbox One, because I have to, like, reset my console every few minutes when I'm playing this game, because there will be these random points where the game starts like freezing and stuttering, and then the music cuts and the sound cuts, and then I can't hear a damn thing, and then the moment the race ends, the whole game crashes. And I went over to a friend's house.
Really?
Yeah. And I thought I was going mad at first. I thought I was like, okay, there's no way that this is like an emulation-based problem. There's no way they fucked up the emulation that bad. So I went over to a friend's house, and they have like a pretty bruised, like messed up copy of the game. We put that in, and I just watched him play the game for like, it must have been like 2 hours or something, and not once did we have any of those hiccups. I tried playing the game as soon as I got home for 5 minutes, tried loading up like Alaska, and the game just, it crashed. And
like, so your friend was playing it on Xbox 360, like the original console it released for.
Yeah, I literally went over to his house. We had to, first of all, find his 360. And, like, well, see, the thing was, I was already over at his house, so I just thought we may as well do it. And, like, I remember I saw, like, a Reddit post about it as well. Like, someone was posting, wondering, like, what the hell was going on with their game. And it was the exact same problem. It was like, they were doing a jump, and then the game kind of, like, stuttered, and it kept, like, freezing, and then the sound cut completely. Like, something went horribly wrong when they were porting this game to Xbox Series X. But the weird thing I noticed is that it only seemed to happen if you owned the game digitally. If you owned the game physically, it didn't happen at all. Like, I have the game via EA Play, and it happens to me all the time. But then I spoke to someone who owned the game on disc and played it through their Series X, and they said it was fine. They had never even heard of something like that. So like something obviously has went wrong in the porting process, because like
Damn.
EA does what EA does best, I guess.
Yeah, I haven't really heard about that. Like, I haven't really heard things about, trying to play it through the modern consoles and emulating it that way and having real problems with it. Yeah, that sucks, because being able to emulate is really, I mean, you've seen it as able to keep older games alive. And so I think as like PS3 and maybe even Xbox 360 emulation gets better, maybe that will be the way to be able to play 2012, SSX 2012 in the future. Because like, you look at, for example, just really quick on this topic, like, Xbox emulation apparently is pretty good now, but Xbox emulation had lagged behind, Nintendo and Sony emulation pretty badly for a long time. And again, certain Xbox-only games definitely suffered from, like, only being on the Xbox original. Maybe some of them niche ones couldn't even be played backwards compatible on 360. And so just it was really hard to play them for like the longest time. Like, again, looking at the Amped games. Now, those are playable, Amped 1 and 2 on an Xbox 360. But I don't think on an Xbox One or Series,
So when you say Xbox originals, you mean shit like Blinks the Time Sweeper.
Yeah, I say Xbox original to mean the first Xbox.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Microsoft. And your stupid Xbox One naming. But anyway,
that's so stupid. It's like, how did we go from Xbox to 360 to 1 to Series X? What the fuck went wrong?
But yeah, so again, some of those games, like, I don't know, again, even if they're playable on 360s, I mean, how many people have 360s nowadays? Both of us do, or at least I do, and your friend does. But yeah, and so some of those games, it's been really hard to be able to emulate and play like that nowadays. And so it's good to see that, emulation is finally picking up for that. And again, I know like PS3 emulation is being worked on as well. People have posted recording SSX 2012 on, RPCS3 or whatever it's called. and that looks to be doing well. So hopefully
It's
those will go
promising.
well, and so you can play the games that way. If modern consoles are going to have severe problems with their digital versions.
Yeah. And I guess now we got to move on to the depressing question. Do you believe that there is any hope left for SSX? Is there ever going to be a revival, a reboot, or do you think the series it's dead? It's like it's in the ground, it's been buried.
I think it could come back. So obviously there's no news or anything, but
I mean,
I think it could still have a place.
there was that one article, and it was by Lad Bible, like a few years back. I remember I was in a restaurant, and my granda, of all people, found it, and he was like, hey, isn't this like that snowboarding game you're always on about? And he was like, wait, you're reading an article about a snowboarding game? And like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, what the fuck? Did like SSX get leaked or something? And I read the article, like, I must have like snatched the phone out of my granddad's hand. And we were in like a fancy restaurant too, so everyone must have thought I was on crack or something. I'm just reading the article, and it's like, apparently EA were thinking they obviously haven't, because that article must have been released in like 2020 by now. They might still be working on it. I don't know if what the fuck EA's doing anymore. But I remember in the article, it said something about there had been talks to remake SSX Tricky for the modern consoles, but I'm pretty sure in that same article it also said it didn't get any farther than just talks. Like, they didn't actually like start like planning it out.
Yeah, I mean, and this would have been 2020, 2021. I don't think there's been any news since then, but Steven Reichschafter has teased that he was working on a Project Gravity. I think that's what it was called.
Yeah, that was his name. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think, well, like, obviously he hasn't shown any footage or anything yet, but like he was like the main mastermind behind SSX originally. Do you think this could be like the new SSX? Do you think this game has a chance if it comes out?
Well, I mean, one, has there been any news since the first kind of announcement or such from like 2021?
There was.
I don't think there was.
I think there was an announcement that they're planning on making the game free to play, which I don't know about that, because I really I don't want to play. No, I don't want to pay $5 to see my character decked out in like a weird ass looking hoodie. I'd rather play through the trick book all over again. I'd rather go through that hellscape all over again.
Do you play the Skate series at all?
Oh, of course I do. Skate.
Okay, so yeah, we're already
free.
We're already dripping and drowning with Skate 4 in terms of that being free to play.
Well, I mean, like, from what I've seen gameplay and like feedback, it's looking good. All they gotta do is not fuck it up at the last hurdle.
Yeah. No, that's just so we're already both suffering with that whole free to play announcement model. But
it's like, I'm going to hope that like, if they make it specifically like just costumes and stuff like that, I can live with that. If they lock like stats or something behind that, oh my god, I'm gonna cry. Just please don't do this to us. It has been 12 years since the last Skate game. You cannot do us dirty like this, please.
I guess that's the ultimate fire back question to the question you posed of do you think SSX or such can come back? And, do you want SSX to come back in this market, in this gaming age? But,
I mean, if Skate 4 does well, then SSX stands a chance. Although, here's the thing. If Skate 4 does well, and Skate 4 is going to be free to play, I don't know how I feel about a free to play SSX game. I mean, I'd be able to try it out at least and see if I like it, but I just don't want them to bastardize my boys.
Yeah.
Oh god. And see that's actually like another interesting question. Would we want EA to be the ones to make this game? Because like knowing EA, there is such a high chance that they fuck this up. It's like I'd honestly say, now this is obviously a hot take, but considering EA and how they kind of treated SSX in its last few years of existence, I guess not including SSX 2012, wherever you stand on that game, it might be better off if the game just stays where it is. Cause like, I mean, if you're willing to stretch it for SSX 2012, which I am personally, because I still thought the game was okay, then they released out of the main games 5 good ones and 1 bad one. I'd say that's a good track record for me. That would be a good track record to go out on.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the entire... It was a product of the entire kind of extreme sports game scene. I mean, you know, tons of extreme sports games as the big ones like Tony Hawk and SSX and such were in their heyday, you know, again, the early 2000s. And then that scene was pretty quick and most of them died. And again, only the big ones continued on and, you know, like on, you know, so it's not like, it is unfortunate, but it, you know, with hindsight, again, it's pretty expected that like all of them, including SSX, died. And yeah, 2012 was, yeah, a decent enough reboot. And I mean, like, look at the Tony Hawk series. They tried to reboot it a few times and totally, you know, those weren't that great. Looking at like Pro Skater HD and then 5. And then, hey, out of nowhere, Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remake,
I mean,
you
like,
know,
that...
released and was good.
Yeah, it's
so
like, and
SSX could have a chance.
Yeah, and that is the thing. It's like, extreme sports games aren't dead, per se. I mean, again, Tony Hawk, and apparently Tony was in talks to do a 3 and 4 remake, but Activision decided against it, which sucks, but what you gonna do? But the thing is, extreme sports games, like as a genre, they're not dead, but they're getting close. I mean, if games like...
I would say, actually, they're making more of a comeback. It's not going to be like it was before, but consider the late 2000s, early 2010s. That's when it was really, really dead. I'd say, you know, look at now Riders Republic, you know, kind of the high-profile sequel to Steep, and then several indie games like Shredders. You know, yeah, extreme sports, and with the, you know, on the horizon of like Skate 4, yeah, extreme sports have found, there's definitely less picks, but they have found interest again, I think, within, you know, like the indie community. And okay, Riders Republic is really like the standout, but you know, some AAA higher up interest now.
I was gonna ask this question, but I think you've already pointed out quite a few. What are some underrated snowboarding games that you'd recommend to people who love SSX?
Okay, honestly, SSX is just, you know, such an amazing package. Anything else, I'd say, either is definitely different feel-wise, or is not going to be to its level. I would say, you know, let's start with, again, the Amped series. I think Amped 2, again, for the original Xbox, again, it's definitely a lot less arcadey, but you know, considering how much towards simulation, you know, games nowadays have gone, it's still something where it's like, wow, now this isn't making a lot of sense. But you know, you can do a big trick in Amp 2, land, and then go for a big trick again. It's not like your screen fades black and whatever. So, but like Amp 2, you know, yeah, it requires you to kind of really get it down and figure out what the game wants you to do. But if you could figure that out, I'd say that is also a really good, really quality, replayable game. And the Amped series also has incredible soundtracks. I think they're the only extreme sports series to have done this, but, get like literally hundreds of songs from a ton of different genres. So those are really, really good. So that's what I'd recommend. And then, of course, for the memes, I have to recommend that people play for themselves Johnny Mosley Mad Tricks, which is a skiing game released for the original PlayStation 2. It is so bad it's good. It is absolutely broken. Something weird will happen like that you'd never expect every time you try to do anything. It's great. And then let me think.
I think one game I remember playing. I remember I was really dying to like scratch that like SSX itch a few years ago, and I think I bought a snowboarding game because I saw a review for it and it looked cool. Have you ever heard of a snowboarding game called Mark McMorris Infinite Air?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of it. I have not played it yet, but I've heard of it.
I've played it. It's it's interesting, all right. It's a beast. It's like...
Yeah, it's and one of my friends, Turo, if you watch my videos, they're often on commentary, has played that and says that it would be very, very interesting for me to take a full look at. I do remember that it came out and interest was, it was a very short, like, kind of interest cycle.
It's like, I don't remember exactly how the trick system for that game works. Actually, hold on, wait. This is gonna be very random. I gotta Google, like, how do you play the game? Because, like, I remember when I tried playing it, it took me, like, a back when I tried learning how to play the game. It's like,
yeah, that's
tricks.
Again, like, that's why I kind of stuttered on your question, because you were like, if you like SSX, what are some other snowboard games like it or such? And that's the sort of thing where, again, like within the sort of extreme sports resurgence, none of them have really done the same kind of control or scheme or feel of SSX. None of them are like, oh, hit these shoulder buttons to do these tricks and then tweak them or such. I think Mark McMorris was one of those where you had to, pre-wind and then try and control the amount you spun or flipped in the air. And I don't remember how you did like grabs and such, but I think honestly by this point that's become pretty standard to try to have more of a, pre-winding and then doing certain things. That's what I really struggled with shredders, to do like really big tricks with a lot of spins and flips. You had to both like pre-wind both horizontally and vertically and get those exactly right. And I could never get that down. So sometimes I'd do like a sick, like 1440 triple backflip. And then I'd go to the next ramp and do the slowest flip you've ever seen in your life and land on my face.
Oh,
and I could just never get those down.
Oh, God. It's like, also, I just looked it up. They actually released like a ton of tutorial videos around the time the game came out to like help people play the game. It's like, I remember, wait, hold on. What dev team? I swear, there's another game I'm thinking of that also released a ton of tutorial videos, and it must have been somewhere in like the hundreds almost. It was like, oh, it was Demon Souls. It was Demon Souls, the Demon Souls remake. Apparently, the guys who remade that game, they made hundreds of tutorial videos to help people get through that game, because like they knew there were gonna be people who could not play that game to save their life. And I'm not saying that people can't play the Souls games, because like it's an acquired taste. Like if I asked you to play Souls because like it's a great game, and then you came back to me and was like, oh, I don't like it, like I don't think it's for me, it's like, that's fine. I'm not gonna like get into a whole argument with you or anything. It's just like, if you don't like it, that's fine.
Honestly, I have never played a Souls game, but pretty much since like Dark Souls 1 exploded as an internet thing, I have always kept up with and watched a ton of people's videos on like Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, Elden Ring. Just seeing people's challenges, seeing people's, do crazy build montages or such. Again, I have never actually touched any of those. And I feel like even with how much I've seen, if I did, I would like start, get my ass kicked for like an hour or whatever, and be like, fuck this, I can't do it. So I totally understand like that kind of thing of, yeah, some games where it's like you can get really, really into it and see so many crazy things, but that it's, hard enough to actually do yourself.
Do you ever think that, honestly, if SSX never comes back, I do hope this is the case. Do you ever think there'll be another game franchise like SSX? Maybe not necessarily a snowboarding game, it could be like a hoverboarding game or a skateboarding game, but do you think there will be another game that plays and evolves and has a personality like SSX did, or do you think that's just impossible?
Honestly, I think, yeah, in terms of really being able to build like a new series around these sort of action sports and such, I don't really see that happening unless, I don't know, there's some unexpected shift in just, I don't want to say shift in society, but, like extreme sports games, and was really an interesting sort of thing where that was right at where, video games were really being able to get more detailed, like in 3D and such. You were going from N64, PlayStation 1, which were like the first 3D consoles, to really being able to actually do a lot more with that into, PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox. And so that was just also just zeitgeist. That was probably the word I was thinking of. Zeitgeist of like, whoa, cool skateboarding and whatever. That was like when like X Games and all those other kind of things were taking off. And so it was just sort of a perfect storm of where that genre became the thing to do for a bit. And so of course you had great games that were able to develop and have, several games in its series, like SSX and Tony Hawk and such. You had a lot of average to, bad games at that time. But that's already happened, I feel like I can't see there really being an explosion in this particular genre of video games again, to where there would end up being ones that are cream of the crop and able to have recurring, series.
I feel like the only way that could ever happen is if, and I would just imagine this, this is my perfect world, if, at the next E3 or at the Game Awards or something, EA announces, an SSX remake of, the first or second game. If that happens, I guarantee the internet is gonna fucking explode, because there are so many people here on YouTube who might have never played it on their channel, but they know what SSX is, because it's kind of engraved into Gaming Hall of Fame. It's I remember I watched a YouTuber, fucking love him, Russian Badger, watched that dude for years, did not realize he loved SSX free, and even went as far as to make a video just explaining how batshit dumb it is. It's
that's the thing. Everyone loves SSX. But it's extreme sports games just aren't the thing to make.
I know, and that's what makes me so upset, because back in the day, EA made all kinds of crazy shit. bro, just bring back EA Sports Big, man. Like the fact they axed that part of the company is just, if I was in charge of that company, if someone ever suggested, okay, sir, we got our tax reports in, we're gonna have to cut off a department. Who do we cut off? Do we cut off like one of the other branches? Do we cut off like EA Sports Big? If they ever suggested I had to get rid of that branch, I'd chuck them out the fucking window. Like, no, Big stays. We don't touch that. We leave that be. It is our son.
Yeah. Then they'd chuck you out the window like Willem Dafoe in the first Spider-Man. Okay, he wasn't chucked out the window, but metaphorically. You can't do this to me.
Oh my god.
I made this company.
Oh my god, I'm laughing my ass off here. I'm just imagining fucking Willem Dafoe, like, as the fucking Green Goblin in SSX. He's just on his fucking hang glider and everything.
Yeah.
That would be, like, the world's...
It's more likely than you think.
I mean, Spider-Man was in fucking Tony Hawk, so, like, I wouldn't be surprised.
Actually, Spider-Man and then Iron Man in Tony Hawk Underground, because Neversoft made the Spider-Man game, and then we're making an Iron Man game that got canceled, so... EA Sports Big would have to, be making something for the brand synergy.
Yeah, it's like... It's like EA used to make so much crazy shit back in the day. It was insane. Like, I remember they just released, like, banger after banger after banger, and, like, I'm pretty sure that there was a period where, like, their big division was, like, outselling their realistic games. Like, they were releasing shit like SSX, and then Def Jam, and then on mine for like a period, I think it was like 2007, 2008, they tried like rebranding like EA Sports Big as a new division called Freestyle, and that division made one game and then it closed down, and it was called Facebreaker. Have you ever heard of that game, Facebreaker?
Oh man, I feel like maybe... I remember the name in the very back of my mind, but I don't remember anything about it.
It was that cartoony boxing game where, like, the main gimmick was that the more you punched your opponent in the face, the more fucked up they look. Like, you could get them to a point where they genuinely were, like, unrecognizable. And the game had this, like, weird combat system where the more you hit your opponent in a row, the more you filled up the breaker meter. And if you could basically, like, punch your opponent, like, 10 times in a row, you got a face breaker that instantly ended the fight instantly. So basically, it's like, gameplay-wise, the game was kind of fucked, because it basically became a race to, okay, who can basically hit a face breaker first. But, like, the game also had, like, a parry and dodge system. So, like, I've actually watched people play face breaker at high levels of play. All it is someone throws a punch, and then for like the next minute straight, they're just dodging and parrying until someone fucks up. That's that's the gameplay loop. It's like, I mean, like, it's like, it was a fun game. I actually remembered it a lot from my childhood. But like, EA just used to make wild shit. It's like, bro, the fact that, I mean, not only did they like kind of like give up on SSX, it was like, do you remember Def Jam at all? Like Vendetta, Fight for New York.
Remember Def Jam.
Oh god, and then Icon happened. They were doing so good. They were doing so good, and then they had to make Icon.
I think it's that, again, like, games just took a lot more time and money to make as you went from, PS2, Xbox, GameCube to the next generation, so you couldn't take as many risks.
I mean, like, but to be fair, EA did kind of drop the ball when it came to Icon, because, first of all, they lost Aki, who made the first two Def Jam games in collaboration with EA, and because Aki left, they brought the Aki game engine. So legally, EA were not allowed to make a Def Jam game that played like an Aki game, because then they'd be infringing on their game engine. So they instead used the Fight Night engine instead. And like, have you ever played Fight Night?
No.
It plays nothing like Def Jam. It's like Def Jam is like Sonic the Hedgehog levels of speed, Whereas Fight Night is like, I wouldn't say it's like this entirely, but I guess for like exaggeration's sake, Def Jam, like Vendetta and Fight for New York are like Sonic the Hedgehog, and then Fight Night is Snorlax.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember, Def Jam was the more arcadey, whereas Fight Night was built to be more realistic. Wasn't it like Fight Night Round 3 was, its whole kind of selling point was like, it's first person and you have to use the thumbsticks as your left and right fists and try to make it more, realistic kind of.
Wait, you got to use the analog sticks to punch? Isn't that what they did for EA MMA as well? Or am I thinking of the wrong game?
Again, I didn't really play boxing games, so...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the only boxing game I ever played was that Facebreaker game I was on about. So my history with boxing games is very limited, and I just realized we have gotten way off track. I mean, it's good to get sidetracked sometimes, because sometimes you just end up talking about like different stuff as well. Like, we literally just spent about 10 minutes talking about something that wasn't SSX, and we were having a great time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it kind of reflected, we got onto this from talking about sort of why SSX died or that kind of thing, and just looking at examples of very similar kind of game genres that had the same sort of thing happen.
Yeah. And I guess one interesting point I want to bring up, and this is the next question, attempting to get back on track, is that, like, SSX, obviously, nowadays, it's a very inviting, but at the same time, like, tight-knit community. It's like, you don't really hear much about SSX nowadays, but if you get into it, you'll see just how much people love the game. Who do you feel like are some content creators, like, in terms of SSX, who are, like, really underrated? Like, maybe SSX isn't, like, the main game they play, but, like, who do you feel, like, in terms of content in SSX, that they're like, people who, like, really should get attention on YouTube in general?
Well, so I guess first off, if you're interested in finding that community, you can find it on the SSX community Discord.
That link will be in the video description, most likely. Well, considering I'm a massive SSX fan, that is a fucking definitely. I will be posting that link, like, immediately. Like, I'm probably gonna post that on my fucking community tab, because SSX is amazing. And that is not biased, that is fact.
Yeah. So I guess I could more answer this in terms of, well, I bring that up because of efforts I'm seeing from people in that Discord. Because I'll just admit, it's not like I go to YouTube and just search SSX and find people who have made a video or two that way. I think there is a guy though on YouTube who is doing like an SSX video a day until EA announces a new one.
I know that guy. That guy's a fucking legend.
It's just like, wow.
And not only is that dude a legend, he's also like really nice too. I've actually spoken to him. I have since deleted those videos because they don't currently fit what I want my channel to be, but I remember I made a lot of SSX gameplay videos, and one of those videos were basically videos where I would play the games, and I would like start at like the top of the mountain, I'd ride all the way down, but I wouldn't show any music, wouldn't show the HUD, it would just be me, the board, the sound of the mountain, just riding all the way down. And on mine, that guy, he actually saw that concept, and he personally messaged me and asked, hey, is it okay if I do this on my channel? And I was like, bro,
wow,
go a fucking head, because that is a great idea. Do that, please. It'd be great. And I think he's done an episode for every game except on tour. And like, the insane thing was, right, is that those videos, they were the exact same as mine. And on mine, they actually ended up even getting more views than mine. But at the end of the day, I'm not mad about that, because first of all, I deleted those videos, so it doesn't matter anymore to me. But second of all, I mean, it's good for him, because if those videos are getting more views, then that means more people are learning about SSX, and I mean, ultimately, his goal is to upload a video a day until they bring back SSX, so, like, the more attention he gets, the higher a chance that EA might fucking listen. It's probably a 1 in a million chance, but I'll take whatever goddamn chances I get, honestly, and good on him, because making a new SSX video every day, even for me, and I'm pretty sure even for you, that would be mentally exhausting.
Oh yeah,
Like, he has to record those videos in batches. There's no way he like, wakes up and is like, okay, I'm gonna go play on tour, I'm gonna play SSX1, I'm just gonna get both of those done in one day. Like, he has to record those in batches. There's no way he wakes up every morning and just says, I'm gonna boot up my PS2, I'm gonna play on tour, I'm gonna upload it, I'm gonna go to sleep, I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna boot up my PS2, I'm gonna play on tour.
yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do that. I'd go clinically fucking insane.
Yeah, no, even, again, my stuff where I always record it, you know, decent amount in advance, it's still like, okay, I've recorded 2 videos worth of stuff. That'll be a single week, you know, Monday and Thursday release. Do I record more now? I really should, because if I turn my console off now, I am not wanting to play and record more for another few days, you know.
That is that's actually a major problem I've personally had recently. It's like, I've got all these new games, and like, I guess this is moving away from SSX, but I want to hear your personal thoughts on this. It's like, I don't know what it is with, like, me personally, but I find I can't get into newer games, like, at all. It's like, I hear so much about games like Elden Ring and Hades and, like, Doom 2016, and I buy these new shiny games, and I put them in, and I play them for, like, maybe, like, I guess with Hades, I've played that game for, like, 2 hours, so Lord knows how far I'm through with that game. I don't know what that game's length is. Like, Elden Ring, I'm about 20 hours in, but I have no fucking idea how much longer that game goes on for. And with Doom, I played that game for like an hour, and like, after I turned them off, like, in the case of some of those games, especially like Hades and Elden Ring, I end up not playing those games for weeks, months, and I don't think about them at all. Like, I'm
gonna be honest, I think it's just called getting older. Like, back in, like, high school, I could play, like, Halo 3 all night.
I know, but dude, I'm
back
18,
even in, like, college, when I
yet.
was, you know, not playing as much, but was starting up, you know, my channel and playthroughs and such, I'd, usually, you know, record enough to where I played a game within, like, you know, 2 or 3 whole sessions of booting it up and hitting record. Nowadays, like I mentioned, it's just that struggle, and like, I put, you know, hundreds of hours into like Destiny 2 over the last few months or so, but always 2 to 3 hours at a time. Like, I'd hit like 2.5 hours of playing and just mentally just be done, like, every time.
It's like one thing. It's like, I have a side channel called Hazy Plays, clever play on Hazy Gray, and I used to do Let's Plays over on that channel, but I don't know if maybe you've had this happen to you, but I felt that I found myself enjoying games less when I physically force myself to sit down and play them, rather than play them. Like, I would rather play a game just because I want to play it and I want to have fun with it, rather than to, like, force myself to sit down, get the camera, get the Elgato, and then record it. It's like, I remember I tried playing Ratchet & Clank 1 on PCSX2, beat the whole game in my own personal time, fucking loved it, came back to it a year later, set up, like, all the recording stuff. I got 4 episodes in, and mentally, I couldn't be fucked. I felt like I was working like a 9 to 5. I felt miserable, because I wasn't playing it because, like, I wanted to play it. I played it because, like, oh, I gotta do it for the channel, and, like, when you're playing a game for the sake of YouTube and your voice is kind of like the only ever thing you're hearing outside the game, I feel the need that, like, I have to speak, I have to crack jokes, or it's just gonna be the game and then me occasionally going shit when I get hit. So I just find myself forcing myself to, like, try and entertain, and I can't improv at all, so I just end up, like, in a loop where I just find myself kind of awkwardly, like, being in fits of silence. So, like, have you ever had that happen?
Yeah, so a few things there. So, one, yeah, definitely, I very rarely stream, but, like, when I do, no, definitely, I'm so much more forced talkative in that than I am just at any other point in my day. But then, actually, with me, I mostly play games for recording and making stuff from them. Like, I don't actually play a lot of games just on my free time. Even that, like I mentioned, Destiny 2, which is the real outlier, was a friend that got me into that game because he wanted more people to play with. Like, yeah, I don't really get any games and play them just for the experience of playing and enjoying them. Because it almost looks like, I don't know how much time that's going to take. I don't know, how much I will end up enjoying it. But since my YouTube channel is for playing and recording various, extreme sports games and such, those always feel like, okay, I know that this is going to be a product. Even if I'm not monetizing at all, it's going to be something to make. And so I know I'm basically have more focus when, playing games for my channel, which is pretty much the only games I play. So I actually feel kind of the opposite.
Oh, well, that's fair enough. It's like, I can kind of see where you're coming from, to be honest. Like, for me, and this is another interesting story, on mine, I played Dark Souls for the very first time back in June. And I set up my Elgato and I recorded my first ever moments in the game. You got your classic, I don't know where I'm going, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm dying every 5 minutes, it's fucking horrible. And I found that by, like, episode 4 or 5, I was hating the experience. But then I told myself, okay, I'm gonna not turn on the camera, I'm gonna sit down for 2 or 3 hours, and I'm gonna just play this game and not think about YouTube or anything. I'm just gonna play it and I'm gonna see what happens. And then within the next month, I beat the entire fucking trilogy, and I was having the time of my life, and not once did making an episode of it for YouTube ever click into my head. As soon as I turned off that part of my brain that was like, you gotta record it, you gotta record it, you gotta record it, it was so much more fun. And now Dark Souls is genuinely one of my favorite games to go back and play, because those games like SSX are replayable because you got, like, all the different builds, like long swords, bows and arrows, pyromancy, fucking that sword, that cloud, or fucking guts, or whatever you call it is, that the big sword that's like twice the size of him. It's like, once I turned off that part of my brain that was like, you have to sit down and record this for the sake of your channel, for the sake of the views, for the sake of the money, if you end up getting to that point. As soon as that part of my brain turned off, I just laid back, and the experience just felt so much better.
Yeah, maybe it is a thing of, do you want other eyes to be on this, like, to be watching you? And definitely if it's something where you're gonna be, like, really struggling, like at the start of a new game, maybe that can be something where I don't want to say embarrassing, but that this is the roughest part of it or such.
Yeah,
I think, again, for me, a lot of these extreme sports games that I play and record are not well known. Like, again, there's several major series that everyone knows, but like, for example, at the moment, I'm playing some of those like very early 2010s, kind of middle of the console generation snowboarding games like Dawn White Snowboarding, and stoked that it's like, has anyone heard of this? If you look it up, there's basically like 30-second IGN clips, and that's that.
Yeah.
Where it'll be like, okay, I will want people to see this because that's the whole point. This might be the most coverage these games have ever gotten. So that's why I look forward to recording them and getting those out there.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the reason why the Dark Souls situation played out the way it did was because I remember there's this one guy, can't mind his name currently, I'll probably remember it once I'm actually done recording this. He would comment on all my episodes, and he would like tell me like, oh, like if you want to do better at the game, like you gotta go to this place, you gotta grab that item, you gotta put on that armor.
Gaming.
And I was like, it's like, I love the help, I love you're trying to get me into this, but at the same time, I'm like thinking to myself, like, you're basically telling me how to play the game, and there were even parts where they straight up spoiled what happened, and I was like, bro, I wanted to walk into the graveyard and fight the pissed off dog myself. And it's like, but like, as soon as I just like turned my brain off and just said to myself, play it and don't think about it, I loved it. And it's like, I guess there's some games where the opposite effect happens, where I can easily record myself playing it, like Team Fortress 2. I could probably record myself playing that game for hours, but like TF2 and its community, it's like, how do I describe it? It's like, if you make too much TF2 content, you get branded as a TF-tuber. And the moment you try to break away from that, you're basically labeled as like a traitor. So even if I wanted to do that, I literally can't. So like, it's like, I just
Really?
I've just decided, like, I said this earlier, I went back through my channel and I like deleted a bunch of my old videos that I feel don't fit how I want my channel to be. Like, initially there was like almost 150 videos on my channel. Now there's only about like 24 of them left, and like the rest are gone. And like, I made the decision to focus specifically on like video essays, game reviews, talking about random stuff that just like pleases me personally. It's like, I don't want to do stuff because people think that like, oh, like that's what I like. Like, I want to do what I like, and like, it's like, and I'm about to expose myself here. The reason I got popular on YouTube was because I used to fucking dub Sonic the Hedgehog fan comics, and that's what I became known as. I became known as the fucking Sonic dub guy. And once I started making content I actually liked making, people weren't watching that. They were watching my old crappy shit instead, and I was like, no, I don't want to be known for that. So mentally, I made the decision to get rid of the videos that had like 20-30,000 views in favor of making videos that I liked. And like, so basically I had to make the choice. Do I continue to make videos that get 20-30,000 views, but I'm miserable? Or do I make videos that maybe get 300, 400, 500 views if I'm lucky, but I'm enjoying and loving every step of the journey that comes with making those videos? And eventually I ended up choosing that option, and I feel like I won there. So like, to hell with the views. As long as I'm personally happy making what I'm making, who the fuck cares? Who cares?
Yeah, and I guess if you don't care about monetization or trying to, make a living or such through this, then that really helps, that kind of decision. Like, I've never monetized, and I'm never going to, because even if this is, pretty niche stuff overall. I have a day job, and it's always been more about, again, being able to hang out with my friends and say some wacky stuff and get each other to laugh over the videos than it has been like, I don't know, trying to make any living.
It's like doing it for the fun always wins out over doing it for the money. It wins out almost every time.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing it for the money, then you feel obligated to do it. Whereas if you're doing it with your friends, you're doing it because you're having fun. It's like, even if I do like get monetized on YouTube, which is still a long road ahead, in the end I'd only do it because like I'm already having fun making these videos. A little bit of side cash wouldn't hurt, but again, like my top priority is that like I want to do it because I enjoy it. And if it starts to become volatile, if it gets to a point where I'm losing myself for the sake of YouTube and my audience, that's the point where I'm gonna like mentally tap out. I'm gonna take a mental break. I'm gonna just recollect myself. And I guess moving on from like the kind of somber stuff I'm talking about, like trying to move back to SSX, what would you say is like a fond memory you have of SSX? Because I mind you brought up the college stuff like at the very start, like an hour and 25 minutes ago, and I brought up like the whole my dad introducing me, my brother finding the UFO. Like, what would you say is like, when you think of SSX and you playing it, what is the first thing that clicks into your head?
I think for me, rather than any specific memory, it's that, again, like that, the Mercury City forums were really the first kind of like online community I was ever sort of a part of. So again, playing, these games back in their heyday, but also again, learning about, I guess, the power of, the internet and community and fandom and such like that. It was a really great combination together. Yeah, I feel like there should be more to say there, but my mind is just kind of blanking. But I mean, like, I'm sure you or anyone listening can, sort of agree with just realizing that is an option, kind of realizing that is something out there. It's not just, hey, anyone else at middle school, does anyone else play this game? No? Oh, okay. But that, like, there are these communities, and again, the power of the internet was quite a different thing back in the early 2000s than it is now. We didn't have smartphones, we didn't have da-da-da. But that was definitely a great experience. I mean, and then this isn't SSX, but kind of right afterwards, then again, the years afterwards, where like I finally got Xbox Live, and everyone was playing the same few games, like Halo 2 and 3, and like Gears of War, Call of Duty 4, everyone was in just a few okay, obviously not everyone, but much more kind of grouped than the kind of spread out thing. So again, it was kind of crazy learning about that, and that you could find groups doing anything in there, anything you wanted, and you could find groups that you could have a really, really enjoyable time with.
And that is true. Like, that is like the magic of the internet in general. Like, everyone always says the internet is like this and that, but that is one thing I love about the internet. If there is something you like, as long as it's not something like some weird shit, like, if you like something, you will find people who like that exact same thing. Like, and it's like, it's also a thing in life in general. Like, if you like something, there's gonna be people that like that exact same thing. Like, I'm a massive, like, Skate fan, SSX fan, Yu-Gi-Oh fan, I know people that also love those franchises. So like I get to like have those like little nerd moments with them where we're just talking about like the newest cards, the newest tricks, the newest strategy, stuff like that. And I even remember like I had this like amazing experience on Thursday. I went to go apply to a college, and I went with a bunch of my friends and our school. They like took us to this campus that I'm thinking of applying to, and you were basically allowed to just walk around the place and just like get like an idea like, do you want to go here? And I met these two like really nice kids. Their name, I ended up adding them on Xbox. One of them was named Dylan, and the other, the girl's name, no, not the girl's name. Fuck it, I'm just gonna assume that it's Kira, because I think it was something like that. It was Dylan and Kira. I met them, and they were playing this, like, life-size version of, like, of, I think it was Operation. Like, you know what the board game Operation is. It's like you get the tweezers, you should try not to fucking buzz the guy. I met them, and I kind of, like, wanted to play the Operation game, and I was waiting for them to move away from the table, but they wouldn't move, so I just started engaging in conversation. And then one of them just brought up Bloodborne and started bringing up Dark Souls, and then we literally spent the next half hour talking about it, and then we spent the rest of the day walking around campus. We don't know each other, we don't know what school we're from, we don't literally ask names, we just bond about shit we like, and we walk around, and eventually we have to part ways at the end of the day, and now I'm friends with them on Xbox, I play with them on Xbox, and that was all because we both knew what Dark Souls was. And I guess, like, that's the magic of liking something, because you'll find people that also like the same thing you do, and you can bond over it. Like, I probably wouldn't be doing this fucking interview with you right now, this podcast, unless we both liked SSX. That brought us to this point, and that's what is so magical about media in general.
Yeah. That's an awesome story.
So fucking wholesome. And they were both, like, genuinely nice people, too. Like, genuinely, it's like, I love those moments in life where you meet people and you genuinely did not expect to, like, bump into them, but you're so fucking thankful you did. And you wouldn't have it any other way. And, unfortunately, we're about to reach an hour and 50 minutes, so it's currently almost 2 o'clock in the morning where I live, so I should probably wrap this up. This is the final segment, and you're probably gonna fucking hate me for this, but do you got any final words before we end the podcast? The floor, Insetik, is officially yours. Do you want to say anything to the people watching before the podcast ends? Anything about SSX? Just anything in general about what we've just talked about for almost the last 2 hours straight.
Yeah, I guess mostly recap. So once again, the SSX Community Discord is where you can find a lot of the efforts going on. I want to point out one other effort. We had that question a little bit ago about any people to point out, and we talked about on the YouTube side, but like, for example, the modders, not moderators, but modders, have really been making crazy work with the SSX PS2 games, and like a SSX Tricky level editor has been released within the last week on the Discord, where you can update and mess with, like skybox, light maps, locations of at least like some of the collectible snowflakes. I mean, that is an insane thing to see actually developing. And, so the idea of, oh my god, custom levels, might actually be coming to fruition. And that's always crazy when you see these leaps and bounds actually happen. So yeah, definitely point that out there. There's a lot of, great stuff going on there again. Otherwise, again, if you are interested in seeing all the other extreme sports games aside from the main ones, and including the main ones, but you could probably find some videos on my channel. Otherwise, thank you.
And
I don't have more to that sentence.
that's fair enough. I did kind of just thrust that question upon you, but Insetik, I would like to really thank you for joining me here tonight for this pilot episode. I actually really enjoyed this. Like, this was fun. It's like literally like an hour and 45 minutes ago, we had never spoken to each other. And we literally just spent the last hour and 45 minutes basically just nerding out over a snowboarding game series that started at the start of the millennium. And I had a lot of fun with it. Like, that was great. And I'd just like to thank you for coming on here to the podcast. And, it was a really short notice thing, too. I literally, as we were doing this, I'm pretty sure I messaged you the night before.
Yeah, short setup. But, I did, too. I enjoyed it, too. So, thank you for having me.
And I'd also like to thank everyone else at home for watching this podcast through to the end. If you managed to make it to the end, not a lot of people nowadays have an hour and 45 minutes to, waste. Well, I guess not waste, spend would be the better word, listening to two completely random people talk about snowboarding games from over 20 years ago. So this has been the GrayScale Podcast, and we'll talk to you all again with different stuff to talk about. So, chat to y'all later.